All right, many-to-many relationships. In Entity Framework 6, it was perfectly valid to have a many-to-many relationship between two different classes. So if we implemented our domain model like this, then Entity Framework would create a mapping table between the features and the vehicles tables. However, at the time of recording this video, we don't have many-to-many relationship support in Entity Framework Core, but I believe this is something that is going to come in the future versions of Entity Framework Core. So for the purpose of this course, if you're using Entity Framework Core 1, in order to implement a many-to-many relationship, you need to add a mapping class in the middle of your relationship. So this is exactly like the mapping table that we have in the database, but we have to physically create this class in our domain model. So instead of associating the vehicle with the feature class, we're going to associate it with the vehicle feature class. So each vehicle is going to have many different vehicle features. So back here in the models folder, I'm going to add a new class, vehicle feature. So here we need two properties, vehicle and feature. Once again, first I'm going to add the foreign key properties and then the navigation properties. So vehicle ID and feature ID. Now the navigation properties, vehicle and feature. So this is our vehicle feature class. Now back to the vehicle class. I'm going to add a new property here, iCollection of vehicle feature. And we call this features. Now let's import the namespace. And as the best practice, we should always initialize collection properties. So constructor. And here we set features to a new collection of vehicle features. Import the namespace. Beautiful. Okay, one last step before we create a migration. In the vehicle feature class, we should have a composite primary key. So these two properties should uniquely identify a vehicle feature. We don't want a separate ID property here because that's just redundant. With a composite primary key, from a data integrity point of view, we can ensure that a given feature is not duplicated in a given vehicle. So we should only have a record with a given vehicle ID and a given feature ID. In other words, their combination should uniquely identify a vehicle feature. Now, to implement a composite key, we need to use the Fluent API. We could use data annotations in Entity Framework 6, but currently composite keys are not supported. So we need to go to our DB context, vga DB context. Okay, before going any further, I want to move these properties on the top before the constructor, just to make sure that our code is clean and consistent. We always add the properties first, then the constructor, then the other methods. Now here we need to override a method in DB context. So override. Now unfortunately, VS Code currently doesn't give IntelliSense when overriding methods in a class. So you either need to remember the signature or simply look up onModel creating of DB context in Google. So onModel creating method. Here we get a model builder object, model builder. Now with this model builder, we get this entity vehicle feature. That's a method. And then we call has key. Here we supply a lambda expression. VF, as in short for vehicle feature, goes to, we use an anonymous object new vf.vehicle ID and vf.feature ID. So with this syntax, we specified that the key for this entity has these two properties. All right, now let's create our migration. So .NET EF migrations add, and we call this migration add vehicle. So here's our new migration. Let's quickly review it before applying it to the database. Okay, the first issue I see here is the name of our vehicle table. It's not plural. Again, I don't know how this pluralization service works in Entity Framework Core. It's not very reliable. So first I'm going to go back to the vehicle class, apply a data annotation here, table, vehicles. And let's import the namespace. Okay, back to our migration. So everything looks good here. But here we have another issue. Again, the name of our vehicle feature table. We need to make this plural. So let's go to vehicle feature, add the table data annotation, call it vehicle features. Now we need to recreate this migration. Since we haven't applied it to the database, we can remove it. So .NET EF migrations remove. Beautiful. And finally, let's repeat the last migration. Okay, so you can see the name of the table is corrected. Now we have vehicles. So .NET EF database update. Excellent. Okay, next we're going to build an API to create new vehicles.